Welcome to the 26th February EFMP Connect. The conversation today is going to cover respite care update for families. So my name is Lynn Dearman, and I am the EFMP Central Cell Marketing and Outreach person. I'll facilitate this morning's session. Our speakers today, Ms. Melissa Reyes, the EFMP Family Support, will open us up with a welcome. Ms. Sarah Johnson from EFMP Medical is going to speak with us about the respite process. And then Ms. Jennifer Houghton is our respite care program manager, and she's going to follow through with some CCAOA information. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Melissa. Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully this will be a great opportunity for our families that are joining us to ask the questions that maybe you are wondering what will happen after the transition takes place on 1 March, and we'll be able to go over that information. And so I apologize, I forgot to introduce myself. I was just so excited and ready to talk about this topic. My name is Melissa Reyes, and I am the AFPC EFMP Family Support Program Manager. And so many of you would have received emails from us on our end. Maybe you're reaching back to me or reaching back to the Central Cell, asking questions specifically on, has my paperwork been received? What do I need to do? Or I haven't received any information. And so you would have been receiving emails from the Central Cell, our workflow box. And so hopefully if there's any questions you all have, please continue to email that workflow box as well. And so now I would like to pass it on to Ms. Sarah Johnson, who's with our EFMP medical team. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Johnson, and I'm the respite care liaison for our EFMP medical team at the Central Cell. And today I'll go over some of our respite care eligibility and benefits. So to start, a little background, what brought this on. So our National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2021 directed the standardization of the Exceptional Family Member Program to include a standard respite care benefit across all military services. Up until then, each branch was responsible for their own respite care program, which offered different benefits. We understand that due to this, many of our Air Force families will be experiencing a decrease in our respite care benefits. And so that DoD respite care standardization is in our DoD 1315.19 that was published in June 23rd, 2023. So at every military family readiness center at our local installations, we have our EFMP family support coordinators, also known as FSCs, that serve as the point of contact for our families that are seeking respite care services. So our FSCs help with new applications, recertifications, reconsiderations, exception to policy requests. And effective 1 March 25, our providers and families will utilize Child Care of America, also can be referenced as CCAOA, for our respite care services. Next slide, please. So our respite care eligibility. To be eligible, the sponsor needs to be Department of Air Force active duty or Air Force Reserve, Air National Guard that are on current active duty orders. The sponsor must be Q-coded, and in order for them to apply, the application for respite care must include a family demographic form. Only one is needed per family, and then also the respite needs assessment, one for each dependent requesting services. And also if they're Air Force Reserve or Air National Guard on those active duty orders, we do need a copy of those orders submitted as well. Next slide. So all of our legacy benefits will end 28 February 2025. And effective 1 March 2025, our new respite care program takes effect. So going forward, sibling care is no longer authorized. And then level of need assessment, level of need 1 and 2 families are no longer eligible. Level 3 will receive 20 hours per family, and level 4 will receive 32 hours per family. I also want to note that level 3 and 4 adults will qualify for respite care, but at this time, we do not have a provider or a contract in place. So once we get that, we will push out that information. And then also note that Air Force respite care and TRICARE Echo respite care are separate programs. So being found eligible for one will not disqualify a family from receiving services from the other. Next slide, please. So here's an example. So it's not uncommon that families will have multiple children that qualify for respite care. So say a family of 3 children apply for respite care. One child is found to be a level of need 4, one child is found to be a level of need 3, and one child is found to be a level of need 1. So as of 1 March, the family will be identified as a level of need 4. That hours, they'll receive hours based on the highest level of need within the family. So the level of need 4, they'll receive 32 hours of care per month for the children that are a level of need 3 and level of need 4. The child with the level of need 1 determination will no longer qualify for care, and the hours are no longer per dependent, but per family. So if a family schedules care for the level of need 3 and 4 child together, say they schedule 4 hours, they'll deduct that 32 hours from that 4 hours. But if they schedule one child for 4 hours and then later in the afternoon, another child for 3 hours, they'll deduct 8 hours from that 32 hours. Next slide, please. All right, for our reconsiderations, families may request a reconsideration for their level of need determination if it does not reflect their needs of their EFM, as well as if their medical or educational needs change, they can submit for reconsideration as well. To complete this request, new medical or educational documentation will need to be submitted for review. This documentation can include an updated respite needs assessment, an IEP or individual education plan, or additional medical documentation that can include progress notes, office clinic notes, whatever the family would like to submit in order to support their request. And then an updated level of need determination will be returned to the family within 30 days. Next slide, please. And then we have our exception to policy, also known as ETP. So service members can request an ETP if they're experiencing an exceptional circumstance, such as that significantly impacts the wellness of a caregiver who's providing care to a family member with special needs, or that requires additional support to give temporary relief to the caregiver. To request an ETP, the service member must provide a written statement identifying the circumstance or circumstances requiring additional support and length additional support is needed. And then a multidisciplinary panel will review all ETP requests and determine if the request is approved, denied, or requires modification. Also, if we need additional documentation. And then within 30 days of the receipt of the request, you'll be notified if it was approved or denied. And that is all I have. I appreciate you having me here. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or I can answer after the presentation. And I believe it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
There are 2 questions or 3 questions in the chat. The first one came from a Major King from US Stratcom, was questioning 4 + 3 + 8, and she just looked for clarification. That person looked for clarification.
Oh yeah, so I can answer that. So a family going forward, 1 March, only the level of need 3 and 4 children will be eligible for care. So based on the level of need 4 determination, they will receive 32 hours of care per month per family, not per EFM as our previous program. So they have 32 hours of care and they're able to schedule it how they see fit. So if they schedule both children, say for 4 hours, they will deduct 4 hours from that 32 hours, leaving them with 28 hours. Now, say they schedule one child for 4 hours in the morning, and then they schedule another child for 4 hours in the afternoon, then they will deduct 8 hours from that 32 hours. That will then leave them with 24 hours. I hope that makes more sense.
So you have another question in there from Christy Casper. It says, can you please review the usage of hours in the different situations? if two children receive care for 4 hours, does that use 4 hours or does that use 8 hours? You may have already touched bases on it, but it's in there.
Yes, that's what I clarified. So if you're scheduling the children together, they will deduct that 4 hours. However, if you schedule them at different times during the day, then they're gonna deduct 4 hours per child.
Okay, another question was in there. It says from Christina Bardine. It says if there's a child that is level 3, but siblings who do not meet the level 3, would it be allowed to pay the provider out of pocket?
That I'm gonna refer to Miss Reyes, because I'm not involved with that. Miss Reyes, can you help me out on that, please?
Sure, thank you, Ms. Johnson. For that particular question, we'll probably cover majority of that information in the CCOA briefing, which is after Ms. Johnson. And so on that particular piece, I will answer that there needs to be the provider that will be there to take care of the children that are qualified for respite care will only be able to provide care for the children that are there that are eligible for respite care. If there are children that are remaining in the home that need care, there will need to be somebody in the home that is 18 years or older to be able to provide that care for the other children in the home that are not eligible for respite care.
One last question in there. Actually, there's one last question from a Maxwell Thompson. It says, are unused hours rolled over to the next month?
Hours cannot be rolled over month to month.
Major King came back and says, that wasn't the original question. You said if 4 hours are used for one child, then 3 hours are used later for a different child, that 8 hours would be deducted from the benefit.
I think she miscalculated.
I think that's what it was too. It's just a miscalculation, or misstatement.
There's a question in the Miss Regina Mullins has a question as well. She's got her hand raised. Okay.
Hi, good morning. So it sounds like anytime the family is requesting hours to be scheduled, those hours will be coming off of that total amount, no matter who the respite care is providing that care for those level of need 3 and 4 in the household, correct?
Correct, because the hours are now assigned per family, not per dependent.
Right.
So it is up to the discretion of the family how they would like to schedule those hours.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next question. I mean to butcher the first name. It says Adiba. It says, what if there is no CCAOA agent in the area? How do we schedule the hours and who are forms submitted to?
I'm going to interject real quick. I know we have Miss Jennifer on the line, who is a representative for CCAOA. So this first part was related to kind of the medical and the level of need. So I don't know if we want to kind of shift to continue the presentation and then answer these questions as we continue the briefing.
That's a perfect idea. We're going to go ahead and move over to Miss Jennifer Houghton, and she's going to speak to us about the transitioning. And most of the questions that you're asking may be answered in this, and if not, then we'll get to them in the chat or as you raise your hands. Thank you. Miss Jennifer, over to you.
Again, my name is Jennifer Houghton. I am the Respite Care Program Manager. I have been with the EFMP Central Cell for about 3 weeks now. I will be the coordinator between services, and I'm working closely with the Child Care Aware of America. We're excited, we're stressed, but we are going to get through this. And Miss Melissa and her team have been doing a fantastic job making sure that this is a very smooth transition for everyone. And next slide. So as you can see here, the Navy has been with CCAOA since 2008. So they've been around a while. They're comfortable working with them. And the Air Force was previously with CCAOA from 2011 to 2019 when services took over. And now we will be transitioning back to CCAOA, which is a national organization, and they support the child care system. CCAOA is going to be responsible for the enrollment, eligibility, policy, all kinds of guidance, payments, the scheduling of respite care hours. And they partner with local agencies such as Child Care Resources and Referrals. And I have been assured that the questions that we've been receiving to our org box, when we forward them on to CCAOA, I have been assured that they are working them and they should be reaching out. Again, this is all happening very quickly come Saturday. Next slide. So here's the transition steps. Everybody should be working on, the families and providers, getting that paperwork turned in over to them. And once everything is completed, it'll be reviewed. And then CCAOA should be sending a approval packet via email. And I know some people still have said they haven't received it. So when we get those questions, we turn around and we forward it to their their transition org box. And next slide. And here you can see what's required that they're asking for so that they can take over this transition as smooth as possible. And the emergency forms, they don't need to be returned, but you want to have those handy in the home. And for the providers that are wishing to work under CCAOA, they've got to submit the following to them. And at the very bottom, you can see that email address. That's where we have been sending all the questions and documents that we've been receiving. And next slide. So here in a few minutes, we're going to be posting a list of frequently asked questions that CCAOA provided to us, but this is one of the questions that we've gotten quite a bit. So if the sponsor has 2 or more EFM children, how many hours of care do they receive? Do the EFM children receive care at the same time? And like Sarah said earlier, these hours are now allotted per family, not per dependent. So that family will get the 32 hours. Next slide. So here's just some ways that they intend for the respite care to be used. The one that really struck me, I'd really like to go take a nap in another room. But this is all to give the parents a break. And then with these providers and the background checks and everything they're doing, you know that your child is well equipped. Your child will get the best care from the provider. And I'm seeing some of the questions on here. Nobody's been responding. Once this contract goes into effect, I've also been assured that I will have a point of contact and a team that I will be working directly with. So we will get you connected. Next slide. So here's where you can obtain more information. Again, there's that email address of where we're sending the questions to and the documents to. They have a transition web page. And I'd now like to open it up to, I know there's a lot of questions. I will do my best.
There's a hand raised, Elena
Okay.
Johnson.
Elena Johnson, yes.
Hi, yes. I know a lot of us have a lot of questions, and there's been a lot of frustration because I know at least our family, our providers have not received any communication from Child Care Aware other than the initial, hey, send us your forms. We've asked questions, they don't respond. My biggest question is, this transition starts on a Saturday. We have a regular schedule with our providers, and this is also their livelihood. Are we allowed to continue service on Monday with a regular scheduled shift, or for people who have services over the weekends? We've received nothing. We've asked, are we matched with our providers? Are they matched with us? What do we do? How do we go forward with this?
That is a great question, and thank you for asking. From my understanding, there should not be a break, but let me find out for sure. I'm just writing everything down that I can go to CCAOA after this.
And I know I do have, it's probably, I doubt I'm going to get an answer because we were told one thing and now it seems to have changed. But especially your slides stating how we're supposed to use respite care. And again, we've had Child Care Aware we had Child Care Aware in the past, then switched to the Air Force, and now back. We were happy with Child Care Aware before. I think our frustration was for families with multiple children. We were understood you guys weren't going to pay for sibling care. When this transition was announced last year, we were told we won't pay for it, but you guys have the opportunity to work with your providers and they can provide sibling care, but you'll have to be responsible for paying them for that. When you say that respite care is for, hang on, I'm pulling up because I took a screenshot of the slide, to take a walk or have a date night or things like that, you've made it almost impossible to actually do those things if we can't work with our providers with that, because Child Care Aware's contract also states we can't have anyone outside of the immediate family in the home. So we can't even hire a babysitter on our own to help with the other children. So I know I'm probably not going to get an answer, but I hope you guys understand the frustration that a lot of families are having with that. And the providers, because their pay rates have been cut. And this would have been a way to help subsidize some of what they were making.
I'm going to turn this over to Miss Melissa real quickly. I'm trying to take notes.
Yeah, so we have one more question. We have a Kat Henderson. Ms. Johnson, we'll get back to you. We're getting all the questions down, and
Sure,
we want to answer this question and answer time. But we have one more hand raised. That's Kat Henderson. Ms. Henderson.
Hi, good morning. I basically have the same question as Ms. Johnson. Our provider, she's actually on the meeting through a call right now because she wasn't able to even get into the meeting, even though I gave her the same login information. There is no contact whatsoever. We have care scheduled with her every Saturday. What are we doing this Saturday? Where are they gonna log this? How are they gonna get paid? She doesn't even know if her background check has gone through. She is getting no answers.
So the question that you're asking in reference to whether or not care can be given on the 1st of March, just to kind of clarify as well, if your provider has already submitted to receive their background check from Air Force Services, what we have, and it's actually part of the frequently asked questions that's going to get attached to this as well, so you'll be able to access it. If your provider has already requested for that background check and they're still waiting on it, there is a grace period that's being allowed through CCAOA. They just have to follow up with an email to CCAOA to let them know that their background check is in transition and should be sent to them soon. And they also need to forward that email to CCAOA. At this time, with regard to CCAOA, we are being told that you should be matched to your provider once your provider has completed all of the paperwork. And so, if we apologize that you're going through this right now, what we'll do is we'll get your name down, and then we will follow up with CCAOA to get back with you as soon as possible. The intent is that there should be not a delay in service if families have completed their paperwork. If you have signed your parent agreement and it has already been sent back to CCAOA, then that's the biggest thing that needs to be completed on the family side. As well as the provider does need to make sure that their respite care provider agreement is also signed and sent to CCAOA as well. And so all of these things have to be in place in order for care to be taken care of on 1 March, but confirming whether that can fully take place, especially for your family, we will have to follow up with CCAOA directly.
That is all fine and dandy, but no one is answering phone calls or emails or anything over there. Our providers, as well as our families, have been completely ghosted.
Well, ma'am, we will follow up with them and we will get back with you. All right. So what I will do is I will put our email address, which you may be already receiving. Please email this email address and I will put it in the chat, and provide me your name and provide me a contact number, and I will reach back to you directly. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
So inside the chat, some frequently asked questions that we've gathered over the last couple of months or so. So I'm putting those in the chat. Please take a quick minute to look over those, and we'll try to deal with those. And like I said, there's so many things that are happening out there. Like I said, look at these first, and then please proceed in asking questions, because it's a time of question and answer. So we're here for you all. So I'm still posting them inside the chat.
Miss Abney Kristen, did I say that the correct way?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, good. I imagine the transition is challenging, but I'm trying to kind of understand tactically what happens going forward. So just fast forward, let's imagine we get through all of these hurdles and hoops and we get everyone set up how should this work from like a scheduling perspective? Is this something where we go on to their website and schedule it? Like, do we know what that looks like? Are we going to need to submit paperwork each month? I'm just trying to understand, like, what does the end look like?
So from what we're from our perspective, what we are tracking on how families will submit their hours, everything will be done online. So all of your paperwork, that's why with regard to the information that CCAOA is sending you, all of that will be tracked online. There is a local representative that will be identified for your area or your immediate area. And that person may not be in the exact same location where you are, but they may be covering a certain region. And so that person will be your main point of contact with regard to scheduling or any changes in relationship to your respite care. So from what we are understanding is that CCAOA has been sending out that information once all of the paperwork has been completed. And so again, we will follow up with CCAOA to find out the status on that because we are a couple of days away from this transition. And so based on the information we received from them is that families will be receiving this before the end of February. So that's in the next couple of days.
Miss Melissa, you're very muffled when you're talking. I don't think a lot of people can understand.
Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for letting me know that, Regina. Is there anybody that maybe I need to repeat what I stated, or please let me know. Thank you.
Hey, Ms. Dearman, this is Sheree Davis. I am Peterson Space Force Base's EFMP advocate. We've talked a few times before in our previous meetings. I'm sorry for just now joining. I got my times mixed up and kids had to get to school, but I'm not sure if it's been touched base yet on, I just wanted to let you guys know that none of the providers so the families that we have here at Peterson, none of their respite providers have heard anything from CCAOA about how to start respite, where to pick it all up and everything and stuff like that when March 1st hits. They also don't have the documentation, so like the sign in, sign out forms. I know for our family provider, she has sent emails and I was with her when she sent them over, and it's an automated email. It's the same email every single time. If you could send me the information that has been discussed already in an email so I can pass that information along to her, I would super appreciate it.
You've got it, Sheree. Thank you so much for joining in. And yes, those questions have been asked. So we will make sure that the information is forwarded on. Hopefully some of those questions and answers that Bruce has been posting in the chat session are helping if you've had a chance to take a look at them. If not, like I said, we're going to have this all available to you and we'll be sending it back out. There are still a lot of questions that need to be answered. If there's any more questions, Taya Booker.
Hi, I had a couple of questions. My first question is in regards to the providers. I know in our area, we're kind of already limited on the providers. Is there anything being done that is assisting with getting more in so that more of our families can use the respite program? I'm at an expedited base and a good chunk of our families already don't have access to this because we don't have the providers to support it.
So ma'am, with regard to that, with regard to the providers in the area, that is a challenge. I know that was a challenge before, even with Air Force Services and now transitioning to CCAOA. Hopefully, if there is a provider that is matched with the family, it is also dependent on if there are providers in the area, right? So it is dependent on that. So just to kind of go back a little bit, I apologize, I don't want to go in circles. If a family has someone they would like to use as a provider for their family, the provider can reach back and they can get certified or they can get complete their documents through CCAOA to be vetted and to be able to hopefully serve as a provider for that family. If you're in a location that there are no current providers because maybe you were using Air Force Services before, but there was no providers for your particular area, we are confident that transferring to CCAOA, because it is also a Navy contract, There are providers on that Navy contract that serve Navy families. And those Navy providers will be able to also provide services to our Air Force families as well. So a question came up earlier with regard to how do we know if we have been matched to a provider? If you have been matched to a provider, you should have already received an email from CCAOA that you have been matched. We have asked our EFMP family support team to reach back to their families that are on their Q-code roster to see if they have been matched to their provider. Someone had mentioned Peterson Air Force Base. I'm looking at some of the documentation I've reached back from Peterson Air Force Base that says that I do have providers matched with families. So I just want to make sure that we're kind of understanding if they've already received the information and that they have stated this information has been received from CCAOA, that they have been matched to their provider, then they should be ready to go and use that provider on 1 March. Because that's the biggest thing, is they need to be matched with that provider.
As a family at Peterson, I can tell you that we as families have not gotten any information about that. We don't know if we're matched or not.
Okay. All right. So, ma'am, what I can do is if like I said, I will get your name, and then that way I only see your first name. And so if you can send me that information to that email I provided, I will follow up on that piece.
And then I had a second question. I have 3 kids that are EFMP, and when we first got to this area, communication was great, all that good stuff. And as time has gone on, and as the program has undergone changes in terms of respite care, I've noticed that communication has started to kind of lull out. And for me, as an Air Force family, we keep being told that the respite program is being standardized because each branch was responsible for its own. And I understand that. But my question is, while we're trying to standardize this, has there been opportunities for town halls with some of the families so that, one, we can kind of express our concerns, what we're using the programs for, what is benefiting us, what's helping, what's not, so that you guys are aware of that and can work that into the plans as changes are being made? Because from an Air Force perspective, as a family in the Air Force, the respite program has changed 3 times since we've been assigned to this base. Each time I have lost providers, I have lost hours. It hasn't worked in a manner that is going to assist me for somebody who has 3 kids with different medical needs. And with the changes that's being made right now, luckily 2 of my kids are going to be too old for this. But if they weren't too old for this, you're telling me based off of the slide that they wouldn't even qualify for care, even though they would need it, where for me as mom, I would need that break. Where are the town halls and those conversations with us before it gets to this point? Because right now we're hearing the changes, we see the changes, but there's also quite a bit of frustration because we're kind of just being told that this is being rolled out. We're sitting here on a Wednesday for changes that's happening on Saturday, and there's still a lot in the air.
So, ma'am, as far as were there any town halls that were offered with regard to respite care changing, this respite care standardization of services? Last year we did do, it's always based on funding, right? And so one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that this standardization is also based on funding, right? And the intent is that, as you all should have received these A1S memos that were sent out, and these memos highlighted the changes that were happening with regard across the Air Force with regard to the respite care program. And so I can absolutely understand and hear what you're saying, because you're not the only one we've heard it from. And there is a lot of changes with regard to a program, and change is very challenging, especially when it's something that affects our Air Force families. Okay, so that's one thing that we're trying to do our best to try to ensure that you're transitioning successfully to this new contract. Now, to kind of talk a little bit more about the standardization. All right. So the thing with regard to the standardization is all DoD branches of service have had to transition to this. So the Army, as well as the Navy, as well as the Air Force and the Marines, we all have to do this. So it's not technically saying that it's just the Air Force, it's all branches of service. And so based on the transition that one branch of service has already gone through, we allowed for 1 full year, actually almost a year and a half of transition for legacy families to be able to continue to use legacy services of 40 hours a month, knowing that we were transitioning out of sibling care. The sibling care would not be authorized after 1 March. So we were trying to ensure that families that were utilizing respite care could still continue to use services until 1 March. Level of need 3 and 4 would only continue after 1 March. So we were trying to ensure that the information was being pushed out as well as we could. And there were challenges to communication in general, and I'm not necessarily going to go into that. But what I want to share with you is that we have tried to do our best, and we are where we are. And I'm sure that that's probably not what you want to hear. But the intent is that on your end, as a family that's going through this, if you haven't been matched to your provider, if you can email me your information, I will work my best to try to find out where your status is. So hopefully on 1 March, your services will not be delayed as you're trying to utilize your respite care hours that you've been getting in your level of need determination letter. And so at this point, that's where I'm at. And so that's what we can do to assist you. Okay. So
We have another question in there by a Maxwell Thompson. Mr. Thompson, please, you had your hand raised. Please voice your question.
So I have two. Number one, it seems like you guys are getting a lot of heat directed, and not that it's not clear like the responses. It sounds like there's a lot of things that we're waiting on answers from CCAOA. Are they willing to host a town hall so we can get the appropriate, like more fulfilling answers to the questions?
we will push that request up to our leadership, and we can absolutely push that up as a request.
Yeah, if there's like a liaison or something who's like a little bit, I guess, closer to the decision makers, just to answer the why, because I think a lot of people are kind of ticked off with the change. But okay, thank you for that. The other question is, can you speak on the in-home visits?
Okay, so as far as for when they're coming, the CCAOA representative coming into your home to provide maybe an unsupervised visit or a supervised visit, is that what you're talking about?
Correct, yep.
Okay, so what specific question were you asking about that? Like, are they going to do it unannounced? Like, what's your specific question about those visits?
So yes to all of them. Like, what exactly are they coming for? Do they let the parents know? Is this going to be like, are they there the entire time? How do we prepare? Like, because some of our kids, they're not used to change, and they see a new face. It creates a lot of problems. Some more than others, and yeah, just what's the purpose of it? From what I heard from my respite provider, who also does this for the Navy, they're like, well, they just come and check paperwork. They're only there for a couple of minutes. Cool. Why not, submit everything electronically? Like, what's the need?
Okay, that is a very good question. And so I'm just going to kind of just say a little bit about it. And then what we will do is we will forward that question specifically to CCAOA. From what I'm understanding on those visits when they come to you is that you will be informed that those visits are taking place. Now, they are also looking to ensure that the safety and the health of your children are being taken care of. And you're with regard to them visiting your family without you knowing, the intent is that you do need to be aware of that as well. So CCAOA will follow up on that piece, and so they'll be reaching back to you. So your liaison at your local area, whoever is assigned to your local area, will be reaching back to you to let you know how it will work out. And so again, CCAOA was not able to join us today because, as you can tell, we are in the last week as we start this transition. So they are actively working to try to send out all these emails because we anticipated the questions that we were going to get from families that where is my match provider? I thought that I wanted to be able to use care on 1 March. We were very well aware that those were the concerns that you all had because this is something that has really benefited your family. So please know that CCAOA had every intention of trying to be here, but because based on their workload and pushing out this information to all of our families, they were really trying to focus on that piece. So we will work with CCAOA again to see if maybe we could set up one of these again. So then that way they'll be able to answer these questions that maybe are still pending after 1 March, and any challenges that any of you may still be experiencing at this level with regard to the transition.
Got that. Okay. And then just 2 quick kills. If, let's say, worst case scenario, we're not able to start up our services in March, are we going to be backdated hours?
No, sir. The hours are only on a monthly basis. So again, hopefully you will get matched to your provider if you haven't already been matched. And so no, the hours do not carry over. They will only be used for that particular month.
I see. Okay. Yep. Copy all. I think that just about answers everything. Since CCAOA isn't in here, I mean, you guys can feel free to talk badly about them. It's okay.
Thank you, sir. We do appreciate your questions. And so again, I have written down what you've asked, and so we will forward that to CCAOA and for follow-up on their side to all of you.
The next question comes from Chris M. Please, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking the question, and thanks for the program's time and effort to kind of get this right for the families. My question is, 1 March, a few days away, you kind of hit on this a little bit, but if in the event we don't hear anything from this new office, the CCOA office, can we just go ahead and proceed with ours? It'd be nice to get some kind of verbal confirmation that we can just press forward and kind of, I guess, backdate the paperwork later if and when we don't hear anything from the program in the next couple of days. Over.
So that is not something that I'm confident to tell you that you can use hours on 1 March if you have not been confirmed and matched to a provider. And the reason why is because this could be something where your provider may not be able to get back paid for that. The biggest thing is that I know that with transitioning, there's lots of changes that come along with that. And so there might be, the intent is not to have a delay, but what we're obviously hearing from all of you is that many of you haven't been matched to your provider. And so that's one thing that we will reach back to CCAOA today, and hopefully we'll be able to get an answer from them. So on this particular chat, and especially what we will do is we will send it out to all of the base EFMP family support coordinators. And so all of these questions you're asking, we will put in a sheet, and then we will provide that to you as soon as possible. Right? But yes, I do not recommend it. Do not recommend it because of the fact that your provider may be the one that will not be able to get paid back for the hours that are used for your family.
Chris, was that the final question you had? Okay.
Yeah, it was. Sorry about that. And I don't ever recall having an opportunity to even give feedback on what provider we want to be matched with. Maybe I missed that, but maybe if you could ask that question as well to the office on how we provide that feedback so we can be matched with the provider versus a random new provider. Over. Thanks.
So, sir, I will say this with regard to that. If you had a provider that you were using before, so here is also some of the challenges that we've kind of seen on our end, is that some providers are not transitioning to CCAOA, and just based on the changes, they've decided not to transition forward. And so based on that, if you did have a provider you were working with and you wanted to continue to work with that provider, if that provider did not complete their paperwork, you will probably not get matched to that provider because they're no longer in the system. But again, we will follow up on the part with regard to families not identifying who their providers are or not actually even getting matched to this at this time. And we're to follow on that piece. Again, I will post the email address that you can send your information to, and we will follow up. That way, when I ask you for that information for your family directly, I will respond back to your family directly to let you know your status. All right, so I will put that in the chat box again, and then that way we'll hopefully get every answer for you quickly.
There are a lot of great questions inside the chat, and we've provided our workflow box. So we're waiting for the answers from you all. So, and this will be our way of reaching out to y'all with the answers that we're going to provide. So please continue to do that. I hope this has answered everybody's questions. If anybody has any more questions, please post them or ask them now as we come to the come to the end of this. So please, if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask. This is Sarah Villa. Sarah, please go ahead.
Hey, so my question is, I agree with a lot of the things that are being said by the other people, but we have one provider that we solely use currently, and she is transitioning. Um, we have not gotten paperwork cleared or any of that, but I know you touched on that. But my question is, if we need a backup for whatever reason, she's sick, etc., are we going to be given a list from Child Care Aware of providers that, because I know like the 6 providers or however many we have here in Charleston currently, but as we transition to a new company, I would assume there's going to be more. Are we going to be given a list of those providers that we can then interview to have a second or a third provider as a backup if needed?
That is actually a very great question as well. And so I have seen some information back and forth, and I do know, like, just based on just seeing some traffic back and forth, is families are provided an alternate provider. And so again, that is something that your liaison at your location will be able to answer for you as well. However, just based on my experience and what I've seen back and forth, especially with one of the families, they were provided an alternate backup provider just in case this provider was not available. So I will say that I know that with regard to, the family, there were some bases that actually didn't have any providers at all. They haven't had any providers. And so knowing that and going into with CCAOA, there are providers already in that area that are serving Navy families, whether the Navy families are geographically separated or the Navy families may be stationed at a location or close to that base. They're serving Navy families. So if we can, as we start to close this out, I do ask you to kind of think that this is actually going to be a lot more opportunity for you as families to be able to access more providers in your area that weren't originally providers assigned through Air Force Services. Because again, there's providers that are already working with the Navy side on CCAOA that Air Force families will have access to. So in some cases, if you had 0 providers at that base that may have been identified through Air Force Services, you might have 1 or 2 that have been identified through CCAOA utilizing the Navy contract. So again, just if you can please send me an email through that workflow box, I will follow up with you personally to make sure that you get the information that you need. I may not have it today, but I will absolutely at least let you know I've received your email, and then I will follow up with you personally on that.
Sarah M., you have a question?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please go. Yes.
Okay, my question is that who or when should I say will we be assigned a point of contact? I have not received anything, and I just keep getting emails stating that, oh, well, we'll let you know. But it is coming up on the month of March, and I don't know how I'm supposed to submit hours and who I'm supposed to submit them to. If my provider and I have all of our paperwork in and everything is a go-ahead, when will we be assigned those?
So again, based on you should hopefully be assigned that as quickly as possible. So hold on one second. There is questions that I had asked. So response from CCAOA that we did receive when we had asked this question a few days ago, there is going to be a local contractor that will be administering the DAF respite care program under CCAOA. All right, so that's the first thing. you will be identified a provider through that local contract. Okay, so it says some locations are either remote or in the process of bringing on a new agency. And in those instances, families and providers will work directly with CCAOA until a partner is established, so a local partner. So until you have identified a local partner, until CCAOA has identified a local partner in your area that you'll be working with directly to schedule hours or to update your paperwork, please email CCAOA directly. On that first bullet, you will see that there is that email for CCAOA directly. I know that many of you have already stated that you are getting no response from CCAOA. Again, this is the last week and they're trying, that is why they haven't joined us today, is because they are actively trying to answer all of those emails. Please keep in mind that thousands of families are utilizing the DAF EFMP Respite Care program. So we get emails on our end a lot and we forward them directly to CCAOA. And sometimes we don't get a response as quickly, but we do get a response from them within the next day or so. So if you have sent them an email and you haven't received a response, if it's been more than, of course, a day or so, all I ask is that please let me know and we will follow up on our end. And then we will get that information to you directly. Okay, so you not being matched to a provider at this point, please send me that information and we will follow up.
Thank you, Melissa. We do appreciate all of you joining today and understand that this is very near and dear to you and you really want answers. I guarantee you that the team here at the Central Cell is working very hard to be able to get the answers to those questions and provide those to you, and know that we will continue to do that for as long as needed to be able to answer all of your questions. So again, thank you. If you've asked questions in the chat, and we also recording this, we will consolidate all of those questions, get the answers that we can and provide those. If their questions are not able to be answered at this time, we will continue to follow until we can get those answers. So please keep in contact with your team there at the base. And as Ms. Melissa said, please send us an email to let us know if you have not been matched, and we'll do our best to get all of those emails answered as quickly as we possibly can. Again, thank you for joining, and thank you for the briefers for taking the time to try to get the information out there. You all have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll be able to talk again soon. Thank you.